Hello, guys and gals, and welcome back. This is the Northern Miner Podcast, and I'm your host, Matthew Keevil, for the week of October 24th. As always, we are brought to you by the Yukon Mining Alliance. Please surf by yukonminingalliance.ca and check out all the exciting exploration and development activity going on in the Yukon Territory. We have an exciting episode for you this week. Lesley's fresh back from a trip to northern BC where she visited Skeena Resources' Snip project in the Golden Triangle. So this episode of the Geology Corner will have a BC tilt to it. We'll be talking a little bit about the mineralization in the Golden Triangle, including things like Seabridge's KSM, Pretium's Brucejack deposit. We dig into a little bit about SK, Snip, some of the past producing mines, and the gold discovery potential in the region, which is driving a lot of recent exploration activity by companies like Colorado Resources, Skeena, and comparables. I mean, Seabridge just picked up interest in Snip Gold as well, so lots of activity going on up there. Lots of drilling this summer, so Lesley was up there to take a look around. So that'll be our version of our edition, I should say, of the Geology Corner this week. Meanwhile, I dropped by Callinex Mines headquarters here in Vancouver. They put out a pretty exciting looking drill result from the Flin Flon district in Manitoba, which is a volcanic massive sulphide sort of hotbed, as they say. So the 777 mine, HUD-based mine, is there. Lots of historic mineral polymetallic mining activity there. So I dropped by to talk with Max Porterfield, the president and CEO of Callinex. I'll give you a little bit of a primer on the drill hole and also the interview before we get into that a bit later in the show. And also, I'll discuss a little bit just to wrap up later. I also had a chance to sit down with Cliff Davis, who is the president and CEO of Nevsun Resources, and we talk everything to do with Bisha, their mine in Eritrea, which has a little bit of a socio-political quagmire going on for them in terms of the regime there and things. So we talked to Cliff about that. We also talk about their recent acquisition, which is the Timok high-grade copper-gold project in Serbia, and that's on the Timok magmatic complex. So we talk about that and what their plans are in terms of development. They're actually hoping to get that asset into production by around 2021, probably. So I'll discuss that a little bit later, some of the details about what President and CEO of Nevsun, Cliff Davis, told me during a sit-down at their office here in Vancouver. But first, let's just crack through our macro a little bit. As we noted, gold's firming up a bit as the US dollar sort of slipped from its highest level in 7 months. So gold's firmed up a little bit. We were sitting at around $1,264, almost $65 per ounce at the time of recording. Silver is at $17.60 per ounce, and copper is at $2 and roughly 10 cents per pound. Meanwhile, oil is also firmed up to that $50 a barrel level we talk about. So West Texas Intermediate is currently trading at $50.50 per barrel. Now, a few dates to keep your eyes on here, loyal listener. The Federal Open Market Committee's next meeting, this is the U.S., is on November 1st to 2nd, the week before the U.S. presidential election. And policymakers are gathering again in mid-December for the final scheduled session of the Federal Open Market Committee for 2016. And so we now have a 68% chance of a rate hike, apparently. Honestly, in my opinion, I think gold's going to hold relatively steady until one of these sort of event sort of triggers either a pullback or a run-up, depending on what sort of economic numbers and rhetoric and narrative are coming out of these last final Federal Open Market Committee meetings this year. And also, we have a absolute beast of a precious metals reporting week. All the majors, North American majors, are going to be reporting this week. Barrick will be on Wednesday, Newmont's on Wednesday, as is Agnico Eagle, Gold Corp. Yamana is on Thursday. We have Eldorado Gold Thursday. So lots of earning reports for the gold producers coming out. So it'll be interesting to see sort of where they are, what sort of gold price assumptions they're doing, and how free cash flow is doing, and of course their cost control efforts, which have been ongoing for a while. And one of the big narratives we're hearing out of producers, it is a big focus on core assets, high margin ounces, like is in really cash flow generating ounces. And obviously we've seen sales of non-core assets, and we've talked about that a little bit. One of the things we talked about was the Mercedes mine, Yamana, just sold off to Premier Gold. So some of those peripheral assets are falling into the hands of smaller cap companies now. So that's one of the trends we always kind of look at as far as what the majors are up to. So big earnings week. So do take a look at that if you're sure, there'll be a slew of conference calls and some analyst reports coming out. So we'll touch on that next week after we have a chance to sort of digest some of the precious metal major earnings. And so that'll be an interesting one. So a good week for that. Lots of news coming out for sure. And yeah, well, so without burning any more time here on our macro, that's sort of where we are for the week. We're going to get right into Lesley in the Geology Corner. And once again, we will be talking about the Golden Triangle in BC. Some of the big projects up there, as we mentioned, include Seabridge Gold's KSM, Imperial Metals Red Chris mine. We do have Colorado Resources doing some significant exploration up there, as mentioned, Skeena Resources as well. But we'll get into some of these projects with Lesley as we move forward here. So yeah, let's get right into it, and I will see you on the other side. We're here with our host,
Lesley Stokes. What's up? Yeah. I'm here. Geology Corner. I like to say it's punishment for some, pleasure for many.
It's great. I love it. I'm always surprised about what we're going to talk about because I don't necessarily know before we get on. So.
I generally don't really know before I get on either, but
that's the beauty of Geology Corner, spontaneity.
Creativity.
Yeah, spontaneity and creativity. The hallmarks of geology.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, actually this week I am going to be touching on gold deposits, specifically those within Northwest BC, because I just got back from visiting Skeena at their Snip property.
Oh, that's right. Up around the old SK and Snip mines. And...
Yeah, I got to see SK from a helicopter. It was just such a spectacular trip.
Into?
We flew into Terrace, and then we took the helicopter over to basically the properties, and then we landed in a helicopter in the parking lot of a hotel.
That's spectacular.
I know. It was so crazy at Dease Lake.
At Dease Lake?
It was as rock star as this rock hound could possibly get, you know?
Oh, you have to. My dad has a few Dease Lake stories.
I bet. There's a lot of stories, and what happens in Dease Lake stays in Dease Lake.
Well, he said he's one that, there's one restaurant reportedly, and if you get there after 7 p.m. it's a bit tough to find dinner apparently.
Oh geez. Yeah, picking the mushrooms and killing the rabbits.
Yeah, pack a snack. Yeah.
So I'm not going to be touching too much on my Snip visit in the Geology Corner, but I do have to say it was an awesome visit, and it was super cool because one of the standouts for me at Skeena happened to be the fact that how accessible that project was, because in my mind, Northwest BC is like Himalayas and Antarctica merged into one.
Yeah.
And it kind of wasn't.
Or up around Stewart even, where I was up visiting IDM. It's pretty glaciers.
Yeah. But at Snip, it was cool. We just landed. It was a beautiful valley bottom. It's basically around sea level.
I saw your pictures. The camp looked
and
nice.
It was beautiful. And it was just like, oh, there's Snip right there in the hill, and it's rolling down into the valley. And then 17 kilometers down the valley is like this power generating station and a road. And I just looked at the boss. I said, Ron, this is great. The core looks awesome, like a robust mineralizing system. And I was just like, where? No, we flew in with a helicopter because it's still 17 kilometers away.
Yeah, that'd be a bit of a...
just down the valley, but it was just, and it had its own microclimate, and it was warm, and it was it was just nice. But anyway, so look for my article coming out on that on the visit soon in the paper.
And they were drilling up there.
And they're drilling out there. Everything just wrapping up. So we saw some core. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
There you go.
But anyway, so today I guess I'm going to be talking about the Golden Triangle, right? And why it's called a Golden Triangle.
Not the Quebec, Ontario Golden Triangle.
I don't know why it's called the Golden Triangle. You know, on one hand, many of the major vein-hosted gold and gold-rich porphyry systems in Northwest BC are kind of clustered in that part of the province. So I'm talking about deposits like Snip or Premier, Red Chris, KSM, Shaft Creek, Galore Creek, you name it. They're all kind of clustered up there. So I get it. But on the other hand, maybe I think it could just be called that because explorers happen to like triangles.
Yeah, it doesn't really form a triangle. I've had this discussion with people before. It's more like a tetrahedron.
Maybe,
like
yeah.
a rhombus.
But maybe they like triangles because, it gives them their bearings and lets them know where to go and tells people where they're going.
And based on the
Sounds
names
much
you
more
mentioned,
interesting.
you almost call it the copper triangle.
Yeah, maybe. I know. So, yeah, speaking of which, man, there's so much metal in Northwest BC. There's no doubt about it. And it can come in really high-grade packages, like Brucejack, for example. They got that recent resource update, pegged the deposit at 9.1 million ounces. And the grades are at 17 grams per ton gold.
That thing's crazy.
In measured and indicated resources. Okay, so I have friends that are working up there, and I hope I don't get them in trouble for saying this, like Pretium friends.
Yeah.
And they show me pictures of high-grade gold oozing out of the exploration drives or the underground development. Oozing. Anyway, it's crazy. And then when you go there, you look at Brucejack and you jump to Snip. Snip produced 1 million ounces of gold from just 1 million tons. So seriously, the miners back in the day, they wouldn't even get out of bed for less than 18 grams gold per ton.
That must have been nice.
Yeah, that's a great day.
No big deal.
And then there's like the KSM Porphyry Camp in Northwest BC, and it has a metal content comparable to that of Grasberg in Indonesia. What they have is 45 million ounces, 10 billion pounds copper, and just proven and probable reserves alone. And they're continuously digging up new stuff. So it's insane. The numbers up there just keep growing. So this is really a really extraordinary piece of super fertile volcanic crust that's right in our backyard. And to really get an appreciation of the Golden Triangle, you must step back and, of course, understand the geology of it.
I need like a sweet like dream sequency.
Yeah.
Like flashback sound.
Yeah, is that, I think it's like Wayne's World thing.
Back in time.
So the deposits are hosted within the Skeena Arc, which you probably heard heaps about. It's basically a chain of ancient volcanoes that formed outbound of ancestral North America about 220 million years ago. Ish.
Yeah.
I don't trust zircon grains, whatever. So sue me. If you want an image in your head, or cool enough if you have Google Earth, like globetrot over to the Philippines and take a look at the volcanic arcs there. That's basically what Skeena looked like, okay? It was just a bunch of volcanic islands with lots of really complex subduction zones that drove slabs of crust and, most importantly, heaps of water, right, into the upper mantle. So in turn, the overlying crust is injected with metal-rich fluids and magmas, which of course forms the porphyry and vein-related deposits. That is as one-on-one as I could possibly get.
People, that's awesome. That was like porphyries in like 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Yeah,
Shabam.
that was awesome.
Shabam.
There we go. We'll just have that on the website and people can just click on it.
Done.
Yeah.
So in the Skeena, okay, so come back here. The big metal event happened between 220 and 175 million years ago. So I spoke to Jeff Kaiba, regional geologist for Northwest BC. Everyone knows him. He also happens to be my number one surfing buddy. Mm-hmm. And he said that studies have suggested that these hydrothermal fluids that created these systems may have moved upwards of 40 kilometers in some camps. So in particular at KSM. So that would make it some of the world's largest hydrothermal systems.
That's
lot
crazy.
Of fluid moved through that crust back then. So when you step back and look at the Golden Triangle today, the cool thing I find about it is that the region is swimming in world-class porphyry deposits,
Big
right?
ones. Yeah.
But there's an unusual lack of vein-hosted gold. Now, we got obviously Snip, we've got Brucejack, we have Premier Silverback too, but that's kind of pretty much the significant ones. And I'm pretty sure that there probably should be more, especially if you have a hydrothermal system of that size.
Yeah.
You would think. So I guess the biggest challenges for explorers up there wasn't just depressed gold prices back in the day, which really tampered exploration.
I will intercede with a layman question.
Ooh, okay.
You said that logically you'd have more of these hydrothermal systems in relation to these big porphyries. Why is that?
Well, because it's all related. So you have these metal-rich magmas and lots of metal-rich fluids kind of coming up and off, gassing off of them. Okay. And then at that time, too, there was bouncing geothermal gradients, right? Mm-hmm. And so that kind of like brought forced fluids into cracks and fissures and you name it. So it's like basically taking a plunger to a toilet. You're just like...
Yep.
over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So there's lots of kind of things happening now.
Things were the hydrothermal
it's like
vein systems
golden branches off of. It's all part of the same system.
I can see it. Yeah.
Sometimes they can be eroded away, and sometimes they're deeply buried. So it really depends if you get the right kind of mix. But they're all kind of out there.
So they found a lot of the trees. They just haven't found all the branches, in your opinion.
Maybe I found the roots or the branch. I don't know.
We're going way down the path of metaphor here.
We're like, where am I on this tree?
How far can we take it?
A tree is the shape of a triangle. A triangle is the gold, and oh god, where am I?
But that's a good description of why the hydrothermals are associated with the porphyries. Yeah,
that's right. So you should be able to see like some, especially in that part of the world. There's such a huge piece of crust exposed. But I guess the biggest challenge for explorers, I reckon, has been the depressed gold prices. Of course, you have 18 grams per ton cutoff at Snip.
Yeah.
Gold back then didn't cost a lot, so of course they wouldn't want to mine anything more than that or less than that. And so, but also, I think that obviously access and infrastructure has always tempered growth.
Yeah.
So, even though we have all these world-class deposits in our backyard, it just so happens that our backyard in BC is a little bit glaciated.
Yeah, and daunting.
Yeah. But of course, there's pockets there that are super accessible, like, for example, Snip that I mentioned earlier. So that's kind of cool. But now, thanks to the lift in gold prices, obviously, and we have heaps of renewed infrastructure in the Golden Triangle, I really reckon there's a lot more to come. And so we have, junior explorers like Skeena and Colorado, OK2 Minerals, got to give them a shout out, Ascot, and they're on the ground hunting. And we have majors like Seabridge or Pretium, and they continue to expand zones of mineralization, really get analysts' eyes on that region. So cool for them. Imperial Metals is obviously trucking away at Red Chris. Red Chris is ridiculous metal content too.
That thing is ridiculous, yeah.
So it's rad. But in the meantime, I just want to really take this moment, okay, to remind everybody that the Golden Triangle is an invisible line and it actually doesn't exist. Okay.
Yep.
So if you're a gold hungry explorer who might have missed, staking the best claims in the Golden Triangle because Colorado happens to have everything, well, perhaps you'd like to float over to the Tutagon region because, it's got the exact same terrain. It has the exact same potential, and there's a lot more room there for you to graze.
Is there any projects that you could?
That's like Kamas area and stuff. Okay. But because I was talking to Kyber about it, and he goes, "Yeah, man, like not many people are looking over there, but it's the exact same thing."
And Aurico Metals is working away on the Kamas South and the Kamas Underground potential. And if anybody remembers, Kamas North was an old open pit mine that Northgate operated for years before they ran into a slight regulatory hurdle.
There is some regulatory hurdles.
But Aurico Metals is now working on that, and we've spoken with them a number of times about the work they're doing there. They're just it's getting close to not a production decision necessarily, but they're close enough that the old infrastructure is there and all that stuff. So it is interesting, that area for sure. And
you go there, look for high grade gold. Woo.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Something. I don't know. Anyway, but have fun in the meantime. Play safe.
And it's interesting how Value Kings and Pretium kind of restarted a gold rush up there, essentially, right?
Yep. Because it makes people realize that, wait a second, there are these high grade roots, these systems. So it's kind of, it's definitely attractive.
So I guess we should point out that Bruce Jack is highly unique.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, like there's not really, I've never seen.
But that's the thing with gold deposits, Matt. Each gold deposit is so unique, and and we force these things into models, and I could list off about 25 different gold deposit models to you right now. And the reason why is because it has nothing really to do about it. It all has to do about the source, structure, trap, and each one of those times, every single gold deposit you go to, it changes slightly, and so everything is unique.
That's the creative element of geology. We mentioned at the
I could tell you a spiel about the formation of the earth and blah, blah, blah. Like I can go into this big philosophical rant about how unique gold is, but that's for another podcast, actually, another day.
There we go. Yeah. We got our next one lined up. So that has been the Geology Corner. And welcome back to studio. That's a nice little primer on the some of the deposit types in northwestern BC, predominantly in the Golden Triangle area, which, as we mentioned, is not necessarily shaped like a triangle. So that wraps up our Geology Corner. We're always always on the lookout for cool subject matter for that. So if you do have questions or insights that you'd like on a certain deposit type or area, please get in touch with Lesley or myself, and we'll try to fit it into our Geology Corner Planning or Lesley's Geology Corner Planning. In that segment, we like to take listener input on that. And while I'm at it, please do surf by the Northern Miner website. Hit that subscribe button. It's very reasonable, and you get access to our Canadian Mines Handbook, which is a great compendium of mines and exploration activity worldwide. And also, please do give us a good old rank in there on iTunes. Check out our Facebook page and Twitter, and also check out our YouTube page, which is back in action. There was a new video posted there from my trip to the Yukon with John McConnell of Victoria Gold. So that's definitely worth checking out on our YouTube channel. Now we'll get into my next little segment here. As mentioned, I dropped by to speak with Max Porterfield, who is the president and CEO of Callinex Mines. And people might know Callinex is, as an entity, been around for quite a long time, exploring in the Flin Flon district. And they put out a really, on October 18th, a hole that caught everybody's imagination a little bit. And it was basically due to some pretty eye-popping zinc grades, actually. 20.8% zinc equivalent. And anyone who follows the zinc market knows that's pretty, that's a nice grade. It's the property is right next to Hudbay's 777 facility there in Flin Flon, the Flin Flon district of Manitoba. So what Callinex did was they put out a press release that says discovered a quote-unquote new high-grade zone. They intersected 10.3 meters grading 13.1% zinc equivalent. That's 6% zinc, 1.8 grams gold per ton, 60.4 grams silver per ton, 0.7% copper, and 0.4% lead. So I had a chance to drop by and chat with President and CEO Max Porterfield. And what we talk about is a little bit of background on the hole. It's kind of interesting. He tells a really cool story about how it was actually an old hole drilled by Placer Dome. But what they did was they essentially just sort of ended the hole a little bit too early. So Callinex essentially not twin the hole, but extended it basically, and hit this really, really interesting looking intercept at their Pine Bay project, which has a few different targets on it, and Max gets into it a little bit as we chat moving ahead here. But the result obviously had a pretty significant. I think they traded almost well over 1 million shares the day of the announcement, and hit a high of probably around 60 cents, I believe, late last week. So they were up quite significantly on the news. So Max gets a little bit into that, as well as their share structure. They received a strategic investment from people be familiar with resource capital funds. We encountered them in the Yukon. They own a position in Wellgreen Platinum, but they have an exploration department where they make investments into exploration stage. Traditionally, they're more of a development or production focused fund, but Callinex is one of the exploration stage companies where they have actually bought into their team. Which is quite an experienced group of volcanogenic massive sulphide geologists and technical staff, including a few names people might be familiar with. Mike Mazlewski, who is one of the most well-known names in terms of Manitoba VMS style mineralization. So Callinex has a really good team, and Max will get into all that as we just have a chat with him here. So this is coming live from Callinex's offices in Vancouver here. So I'll run this now, and I will see you on the other side. This is Matthew Kiva with the Northern Miner, and I'm reporting on-site from downtown Vancouver with Max Porterfield, President and CEO of Callinex Mines. Thanks for joining us, Max.
Thanks so much for having me.
You guys recently released quite an impressive drill hole at your Pine Bay project in Flin Flon, Manitoba, Max. Maybe a little bit of elaboration and color for our readership on the Pine Bay project, the hole, and why it caused so much excitement.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, first of all, taking more of like a higher level approach to the area, the project's located 16 kilometers away from Hudbay's processing facility and operations in Flin Flon, Manitoba. And this is an area that's had over 90 years of continuous production across 32 mines. And you've really got all that infrastructure, people, and access that you really need to be able to fast-pace something. So with that being said, looking at that was kind of where the property is located and where this recent discovery was made. Hudbay's operations today has a 4-year mine life at the 777 mine. Reed Lake has a 3-year mine life, and they're trucking that ore 140 kilometers away. And so we saw a potential to go out there and make a meaningful discovery. Now, the area in which we announced this discovery hole was previously explored by majors like Plastodome and Inmet. When Plastodome operated and explored the property in the early 1990s, they had a mandate to discover a 30 million ton ore body, so a very large ore body. So we came in and we have a technical team. Actually, our technical team is associated with the discovery of 3 of the 4 largest mines in the camp's history, with the exception of the original Flin Flon mine. And our team thought there was the same geological pedigree and potential for this area to host a large VMS deposit, which again are a high-grade basin precious metals rich. And the reason for why Plastodome and Inmet and a lot of the geologists out there, and I've always thought there'd be a potential to host a large VMS deposit, was really the geological environment that you see there. It encompasses what's known as the Baker-Patton felsic volcanic complex, and real simply, what that means is it's one of the largest map felsic rock packages in the entire Flin Flon greenstone belt. And why that's important is about 90% of the ore ever mined in Flin Flon's history has been hosted in these felsic host rocks. This, coupled with the very large alteration package at surface, really, which allows for a lot of fluid flow and displacement of these type of deposits, and there's typically a direct correlation to the size of your alteration package deposit that will be located there. So there's always been this thesis that there'd be a large deposit that at depth, discovered at depth there. And so I think really this is kind of proof of concept, and this was done by really vectoring into the system through our previous drilling campaigns, where we had a thought process, from based on our last drilling campaign when we announced the discovery of our Pine Bay East zone, that potentially Plastodome might be off just a bit in terms of where they thought the productive horizon was. So what we did and how the discovery was made is based upon this understanding in our geological interpretation, where they had ended that hole, we went down hole, that old Plastodome hole that was drilled in the early 1990s, and extended that hole 38 meters. And when we did, we hit that horizon that we announced just earlier this week. So very, very exciting. I think it's a proof of concept. And, we definitely have follow-up to see what this potential holds there.
And that's interesting. I mean, just to clarify, so you guys actually drilled down an old placer dome hole, and so the thesis is that they sort of didn't go far enough.
No, absolutely, they didn't go far enough. They ended the hole in what's known as the footwall mineralization, and they were just short. So that was very fortunate for us. It worked out that way, and very, very exciting for that to kind of come to fruition the way it did.
And I mean, it is an exciting region. Like you said, there's producing mines in the vicinity. And one of the things that happened last year is you brought on some new strategic shareholders. So maybe if you can talk a little bit for our listeners about the capital structure, what it means to have shareholders like Resource Capital Funds who came on last year, and sort of what your plans are as far as following up on this whole.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate to have a 20% institutional ownership base that has come on since we renewed focus on this VMS exploration in late 2014. Resource Capital Funds, for example, is our largest shareholder, and they came in and really typically there's type of investors that come in on the construction and development stage, but they had formed a new exploration strategy, and we're going to go out and back and really focus on backing teams, and it was a really kind of a vote of confidence to the market. When they came in and provided that financing that they did at that time on the team and the geologic potential for what we're looking for. With that being said, as a whole, we've got just over 60 million shares outstanding to date. Again, 20% institutional ownership. Insiders and close associates to the company that are long-term investors also control roughly another 34-35% of the float today.
And while the Pine Bay discovery is really driving interest in the market, and it's some impressive zinc equivalent numbers have come out recently, you also have the sourdough zone that you're looking at or target. Maybe a little bit of elaboration on the sourdough zone and what sort of your plans are there this year.
Yeah, so the sourdough area is that's a discovery we made last last summer during our summer drilling campaign last year. And again, it was following up from some other drilling that we did, but essentially we'd gone down plunge from some mineralization at surface, similar to what we have at the Pine Bay discovery, which is down plunge from mineralization at surface as well. We hit that zone. It was 7.5 meter zone. We went down plunge this past winter to see if the grades improved. Grades were more of the same, which is what we're looking for. We're looking for the, again, high grade mineralization. When we pulsed that hole at that time, we saw a very strong geophysical conductor to the north that was on the same stratigraphic package that hosted that sourdough deposit, as well as the Centennial mine, which is a higher grade mine that was operated by Hud Bay many years ago. So with that, we just recently announced just a couple weeks ago where we drilled to test that target. We actually hit the edge of the geophysical plate, and what they came back is pretty wide intercept. I think over 24 meters of sulphide mineralization that was copper, zinc, and precious metals bearing. And since probing that, it shows again there's a strong target that seems to be directly associated with that mineralization that we've hit that we'll also need to follow up on. So again, we've got two emerging properties on this, well over 6,000 square hectare property.
Well, that's exciting days out in Flin Flon, Manitoba with Callinex Mines. This has been Matthew Keeble with the Northern Miner, and we've been talking with Max Porterfield, President and CEO of Callinex. Thanks, Max.
Thanks so much for having me.
And we're back in studio. And again, I'd like to thank Max Porterfield from Callinex Mines for joining us. That was awesome. I do have a much more in-depth interview with Max that I'll be putting together as more of a long-form article. So do look out for that this coming week. We'll probably up later in the week, Thursday, Friday. We'll see my Callinex article, and that'll be in paper next week, more than likely. So thanks again to Max. Do surf over to the Callinex website and check out their intersect at the Pines Bay project. Cool stuff going on over there, so do check it out. And as always, I just wanted to touch base with our sponsor, the Yukon Mining Alliance. One of the things, the projects I actually visited this summer was Golden Predator's Three Aces project near Watson's Lake. Now, I just wanted to point out, Golden Predator did announce on October 17th that they're commencing a drill program at Three Aces. They did a big bulk sample with some promising results on the Sleeping Giant vein, and actually just completed a bridge crossing of the Little Highland River. So they actually have full road access now to their Three Aces property. So Golden Predator is going to be drilling there, and one of the things that really stood out for me when I visited the project was the accessibility of it. So they'll be able to drill despite the fact the weather is getting a little bit colder. But so we'll look out for some good results from Golden Predator's Three Aces property. And then just to finish up the show, I did mention earlier I had a chance to sit down and speak with President and CEO of Nevsun Resources, Cliff Davis. This was last week, and Nevsun's been in the news quite a bit over the last 12 months. People have heard a little bit about there's some refugees from Eritrea who are filing a civil suit in the BC Supreme Court, which was permitted to go ahead last week, that purports that Nevsun was sort of involved with the government of Eritrea in using forced labor. So there's that's a really important lawsuit because it's the first time a Canadian company will domestically face a suit for international problems that they may have experienced in terms of human rights. And so I had a chance to talk with Cliff, and he said they've been independently audited by a reputable international lawyer, and that they do their corporate social responsibility reports every year, and that a lot of the narrative surrounding Eritrea, it is essentially an authoritarian regime there, and so a lot of the narrative surrounding there is in terms of a regime change. But I've had a chance to read Nevsun's CSR reports, corporate social responsibility reports. They have been independently audited, and obviously he couldn't comment on the actual legal proceedings, but he said they're very proud of the work they've done in Eritrea at their Bisha mine, and they just recently completed $100 million. Well, that was the budget. They actually only spent $77 million, so it was under budget. A new zinc circuit there to capitalize on a high-grade zinc zone they're about to start mining, which is going to accentuate. They've just been moving through the copper zone, so the copper circuit's already been there, and so they're turning into this sort of moving towards becoming a mid-tier base metal company, and that moves into the story of them buying Reservoir, which is a project generator in Serbia with a Timok project, as I mentioned earlier. And they were actually a little bit of a bidding war with Lundin Mining, who also wanted the asset. Freeport is a GAV partner on a portion of the project, and then also Rio Tinto is involved with the Tilva concessions, which are next to the Timok concessions in Serbia. So lots of majors are wandering around over there, and you can see why. Nevsun released on October 17th. These are actually, funny enough, these were drill holes from a 2015 program that Freeport completed that were never assayed. So Nevsun assayed them, and it was generally a resource upgrade program for the upper lower zone that Reservoir had discovered. And the grades continue to be impressive. That may be a bit of an understatement. The big cut they hit with these most recent results was 248 meters of 6.37% copper, 3.19 grams gold per ton. Now that's not even the highest grade stuff. They actually hit 40 meters of almost 19% copper and 11 grams gold per ton. So this thing continue. The Timok, this is the upper zone. Which is sort of the upper zone, which is characterized by massive and semi-massive sulphide mineralization, and the lower zone, which is the portion where Freeport can back in for a 54% right following a feasibility study, is more of a traditional porphyry style mineralization, so very large project. And one of the things Cliff told me about Timok is they have a lot of support from the Serbian government, and they want to move ahead aggressively. As I mentioned earlier, they want to get into production by 2021. So there'll be a pre-feasibility study coming out on the Timok upper zone by late next year. And they want to move forward with that aggressively. And then also there'll be ongoing work as per the joint venture with Freeport. There'll be about over 60,000 meters on that lower zone, the big bulk porphyry zone. And he said having majors like Freeport involved is such a good thing for companies like Nevsun, because Freeport has the expertise and sort of the size to tackle these large projects. And then also that links into obviously their JV with Rio Tinto next door on a separate concession. And Rio Tinto their general involvement in the country, because this the discoveries being made along this Timok magmatic complex are impressive in terms of size and grade. So we'll see as we move forward here whether they're the next sort of major copper district, and I mean it starts to emerge in Serbia, but there's sort of a precursor to that, and that is that this area has a long mining history. The Bor mine is there. There has been a lot of copper, open pit copper mining going on in Serbia, but this is sort of these new discoveries are really, you just don't see these grades anymore. In terms of large-scale copper assets, so it'll be interesting to see how fast they can get going at Timok, and how Freeport and Rio come into the equation. So yeah, it was a good chat, and they'll keep your eye out for more news as Nevsun moves forward here. You'll probably get some more, I'd assume some more drilling results as they move towards a little bit of greater understanding of the metallurgy. And also Cliff mentioned they were looking at sort of adjusting mine plans in terms of direct shipping ore and how to capitalize on the really high grade material in the early years to maximize the payback period or minimize the payback period, which is what you'd actually want to do. So an interesting one, and one of the things I look at Nevsun and I think it's kind of sort of a little funny. Since they won the bidding war for Timok over Lundin, the stock has been relatively flat. So it's not like the market has given them a great multiple for the addition of this really high grade copper gold asset to the portfolio. So we'll see if as they start to move forward and clear those sort of permitting milestones and things like that, if this starts to give a little bit of momentum to the stock as well. So we'll keep our eyes on that. So that's pretty much our show for this week. Thank you again so much for joining us. We do really value your listenership.